decisions. So this material is based on chapter 1. And remember, I told you that last class, I said that for many years, business had no ethical courses. When I took business 40, 50 years ago, there was nothing on ethics. But we added ethics about 30 years ago, about 25 years ago here at Seneca. It's when I started teaching ethics here at Seneca about 25 years ago. And we started adding ethics. And what we had to do was we had to borrow from philosophy, because philosophy is where we get the ethical theories, and we apply it to business. So we make ethical decisions. We start with 3 philosophical traditions. Okay, 3 philosophical traditions. All right, Nilfor, did you? Okay, okay. So 3 philosophical traditions, and they come from philosophy. The first is we call character ethics, which looks at the person. The person is the agent, the person doing the action. All right. So in the airplane case, it's the president who does the action. And then we look at the action and we look at the standards and apply the standards to the action. In the airplane case, it was a bribe. A president makes a bribe. The action is the bribe. Does that bribe break standards? And finally, we look at the end result, which considers what is the consequence? What is the end result? And in the airplane case, the consequence was a good consequence, save jobs. All right. All right. So let's take a look at these one by one briefly. We'll start with the middle one here. We'll start with deontology. Okay. All right. So deontology, basically, it says, does this action follow certain standards of right and wrong? Now, when we talk about standards, we can have universal standards. In other words, these are standards that all human beings, based on their moral conscience, based on the human nature, we consider them wrong universally. Everywhere around the world, every period of history are considered wrong. And so if you think about moral standards which are universal, for example, lying is considered a moral honesty. Lying is considered a universal standard because in every culture, in every society, we believe that we should tell the truth. Now, sometimes we all lie, of course, but in general, we need to tell the truth most of the time. And the reason is because if we lie, we break trust. And in order for society to have trusting relationships, you need to be honest. In order to be honest, we can't have trust, right? So we need to trust each other. Another universal standard is physically harming someone for no reason. Now that would, I can't just randomly punch someone in the face because that would be wrong because we consider that a universal standard. Okay, so if I were to ask you, let me give you another question here. All right. So what do you think? I've given you some ideas here. What standards or rules do you consider universal? Nilfor, you had a noise. I had a noise in your voice. Okay. All right. Well, it's okay now. Okay, good. Okay. All right. So let me just put up the choices here. All right. So you choose: wear clothes, don't go around naked. A. B, do not kill. C, do not murder. D, all of the above. And E, do not kill and do not murder. Okay, so just choose one. Okay, go ahead and choose. So I've got 16 online. I've got 7 responses so far. Maybe I'd like the rest of you just push one of those and okay. I still need a few more. It's okay. Just take a guess. No big deal. I want you to participate. And I can see who responds. All right. I want you all to participate. Okay. Any more? Any more responses? 12. Okay, last chance. Last chance. I know some people their computer may not be working. I don't know why, but as many as possible. Okay. of 16 online. All right, I'm gonna publish our results. Okay, we've got I have 12 responses here, and here's what we got. There. So uh, many said all of the above, and some said B and C. Okay. Now, let me just give you the actual answer here in terms of a universal standard which applies to everyone around the world. Everyone believes this is a universal standard. The actual answer is C, do not murder. You say, well, why is it not killing? Well, if you go back to this one, killing and murder are two different things. Killing is just taking a life. Murder, on the other hand, is taking an innocent life. That means the person has not done anything to deserve being killed. In some societies, we can kill a person for punishment. We have capital punishment. If someone commits a heinous crime, that person can die because of capital punishment. They put the person to death. Not in Canada, but in some countries that is legal. And self-defense. If someone was to threaten myself or my family and they're going to hurt my family, well, I kill you, and I would do so in self-defense. That is perfectly justified in a court of law. Okay, so do not murder. Now, some of you may say, well, what about wearing clothes? Doesn't everybody wear clothes? Well, thankfully, yes. But in some society, you can Google this if you want. In some islands, a remote part of this world, there are still some places where there are people who have never, tribes with no contact from the outside world, and they don't wear clothes in some of these tribes. Okay, so they run around naked. All right. So what I'm saying is it's not a universal standard. Universal standard is a standard that everyone around the world believes we should follow. So the real universal standard here is do not murder, because every society believes it's wrong to take a life for no reason. Okay, to take innocent life. Okay, so that's universal standards. All right. Now there are other standards. There are local standards like laws of a country. So let me ask you this other question about a non-universal standard. Same-sex marriage. It's not a universal standard because in some countries it's illegal. In some countries like Canada, it's perfectly legal. Now, what do you think? Do you think it should be a universal standard? Okay, so here, let's take. I will take attendance again. All right, don't worry. Yugish, I will take attendance again. Okay, any other responses? Go ahead and respond. Any other responses? I've got 15 so far, 15 out of 18. Okay, anyone else? All right. So let me publish the poll here. Now, this is interesting. Okay, out of 15 responses, there you go. No one said no. Interesting. I've got this semester I've got 3 ethics classes, and so far you're the only class that no one said no. Okay, and I've asked this question over the years, and I've always gotten some no's. Okay, so no one here says no, and many times I know some students say no because of their religion, and I understand that because certain religions, gay marriage is prohibited. Okay, now the vast majority say yes and maybe. So maybe is kind of like a yes. All right. And it's kind of interesting because gay marriage became legal in Canada in 2005. So almost 20 years ago. And I told you I taught ethics started teaching about 25 years ago. And I asked this question. So when I asked this question 25 years ago, the vast majority of students 25 years ago said no. All right. But over the years, it started becoming more even, about 50-50. And today, I have far more yeses, like what we have here, than before. So, what I'm saying is, attitudes have changed as well, laws have changed. See, so we look at this chart here. See, yes, the answer is yes, based on the universal ethical principle of fairness and equality. See, based on fairness and equality, I think, you know, gay people, they should have the same right as straight people. And the gay people that I talk to, they tell me, I did not choose this lifestyle. I was born this way. Okay. So if you're born that way, why should I discriminate against you based on the fact that you were born that way? I should give you the same right as straight people. And so it's interesting that laws should be based on ethical principles and they need to be updated. So a law can be unethical, okay? So law, just because it's legal doesn't mean it's ethical. So laws have to catch up to ethics, and ethics influences the law. And so slowly, gay marriage is becoming legal in more and more countries as time goes on. In Canada, I told you it became legal. If you see the chart here, it says it became legal in 2000 and 2005. Okay, 2005, Canada legalized gay marriage, and I still remember. I actually watched on TV because I'm pretty old now. In 2005, I watched on TV that first gay marriage, and it was between two men, and it was done at a church. And in the marriage, they say, okay, you can kiss, and the two men kissed each other. And initially, my reaction was, well, I felt a little strange because I wasn't used to it, right? And so even today, I still feel a little uncomfortable, but when I think about it ethically, people are born this way and they didn't choose it. So I should not discriminate against them. I should give them the same right to happiness and the same right to equal rights as straight people. All right. So that's what deontology looks at. Can you explain both? Okay. Okay. I'm not sure what question you. Therefore, said, can you explain both questions? I don't understand which one is correct. Okay. So in this one, the correct answer would be yes, gay marriage should be legal based on ethical principles. Okay. And so deontology basically says, does this action follow universal ethical standards, universal standard of equality, laws in a country? And again, sometimes it has to go beyond the law, professional and company standards. All right. So that's the one on deontology. So we look at standards, universal standards, as well as local standards, such as law, and also professional standards. Remember, we talked about professional codes. Okay, we asked, does it follow that? Now, the second looks at the one that we're going to take a look at is the virtue ethics. So we just looked at deontology, and now we're going to look at virtue ethics. Virtues are positive character traits. And this looks at the question, what does this action say about me as a person? Okay. Now, because sometimes some actions don't always follow certain standards, or certain standards don't apply to every action, right? So sometimes we have to use virtue ethics. So let me give you an example here. Some years ago, there was this candidate. He was running for office. His name was Jerry Vance. Okay, so he was running for conservative candidate, and people were thinking about voting for him. He was doing okay in the polls, and then a video surfaced of him working before he got into politics. He used to work as a plumber. Okay, so here's a clip from the video. So here's Jerry Vance. You can see the back of his head there. That's him. Okay. And he used to work as a plumber. See, many homes today have home monitoring. You've got a camera in your home. Okay. So I've got a camera in my home as well. So we can see people in different parts of the house through hidden camera. Okay. So here he was caught, and he didn't know he was on camera and being recorded, working as a plumber. He takes a coffee mug or cup from the homeowner's sink. And then he does something. Look what he's doing here. Okay, see him there? He's stooping behind the counter and he's doing something. Okay, okay. What do you think he's doing here? Uh, yeah, what do you think he's doing here, huh? All right, he is stooping there behind the counter, and you know what? I'll tell you what he's doing. He's peeing. He's peeing inside the coffee mug. Okay. Oh, is that gross or what? But that's what he's doing. Okay, he's peeing inside the coffee mug, and afterwards, he pours the pee down the drain, and he leaves the mug in the sink without washing it. Oh, and I think, oh my goodness, what if the owner of the house didn't see the video and comes by later and picks up the coffee mug and pours some juice in there and drinks it? Oh, oh, is that gross? and so, and so, okay, let me ask you this question: would you vote for this guy after seeing that video? Okay. No, he's a disgusting man. Oh, sure, lots of people would have done the same thing. Or C, maybe everyone's got to go and maybe it wasn't convenient to use the bathroom. I don't know. Okay. Okay. What do you say? Neil, for if you want to stay after, I can go back and explain the question to you. Okay. If you have a question, I'd be glad to. All right. Thanks. So, what do you say to this? Would you vote for the guy after seeing that video? Okay. Anyone else? I've got 13 out of 17 responses so far. Anyone else would like to respond? Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to publish. So we've got 14 responses, and here's what you said out of 14. There you go. So the vast majority says, no way he's the disgusting man. No way he's a disgusting man. And a couple of you, some might give him a break, okay, and some said maybe, but people said no. Okay. Harnu, did you have a question? All right. Okay. So, and basically, that's the reaction of people. When the voters saw the video or they heard about the video, they said, no way, I'm not going to vote for this guy. And essentially, he had to drop out of the race. Okay. Because, so this is what we call virtue ethics. So, he did something. All right. And there wasn't a standard to apply. There wasn't a law, maybe a specific law that he broke, but essentially the action reflected poorly on his character. Okay, and that's what we call virtue ethics. It focuses on what the action says about the person, because a man of good character would not act this way. His actions show selfishness, a lack of regard for other people's property, and simply we're just disgusted by it. And said, no way am I going to vote for that guy. So that's what we call virtue ethics. So that's what we got to look at. Another way to look at an action. Okay, so we look at it. Deontology says we look at standards. Does it violate standards, like universal standards? Virtue ethics says, what does it say about the person? All right. The last one here is we look at the end result. And this is consequentialism, where we get the phrase, the ends justifies the means. If we have a good result? Well, that's the right action to take. Okay. And the idea is if more benefit versus harm, then we take the action with the best outcome. All right. So that's what we're looking at, utilitarianism or consequentialism. So we remember the case that we did, and I asked you to do this. An airplane manufacturer just built an airplane, and if the company doesn't get a large order for its plane soon, it's going to have to close its operation in a small town. If they're forced to close down the plant, thousands of workers will be out of a job and the town's economy will collapse. The president of the airplane company has been trying to interest the government of a foreign country in a large purchase. And he learns that one of the key government ministers in charge of making the final decision is in debt because of gambling. So the president quietly and secretly offers the government official $1 million in exchange for awarding the company the contract to build the planes. The money is paid and the company gets the contract. So the president argues that his action was justified because the company gets the badly needed order, doesn't have to close down the plant. The workers are able to keep their jobs, the town is saved, the government official is able to pay his debts, and the foreign country gets the planes it needed. The good produced outweighs any harm produced by the bribe. So he's making a utilitarian, consequentialist argument. He says more good than harm, right? So, what do you say? I know you answered this in your assignment, but answer it one more time. Maybe if you change your mind, you can change your mind. Okay, what do you say? Yes or no? Did he do the right thing? Okay, keep answering. I've got 14 responses so far. Any more? Any more? Okay, I've got 14 responses, and here's what you said. Now, this is interesting. It says here 50-50. Now, I find it interesting because when I got your responses in the assignment, the vast majority said no. Okay, only a few of you said yes. Okay, so I don't know, maybe you changed your mind. I don't know. But okay, so if you said yes, you're basing your argument on the utilitarian consequentialist argument. You're saying more good than harm. So therefore, it was the right thing to do. Okay, now if we take a look at it from the other two approaches, deontology and virtue ethics, what would you say? So we know that based on consequentialism, yes, the answer is yes, he did the right thing because it was good consequence, right? But what about the other actions? What about the other philosophies? Well, if we take a look at it from the deontology point of view, okay, in deontology, the textbook has what we call 5 universal ethical core principles. So these are what we consider core ethical principles that apply all around the world universally. They are people should help others, that's beneficence. People should not harm others, non beneficence. Autonomy, people should have free choice. Justice, which basically means we should act with fairness. And finally, we should act responsibly. These are 5 core principles. Okay, now if I were to ask you, based on these rules, not consequentialism, but based on the rules and standards, did he do the right thing? Just based on this approach alone, what do you say? Okay, keep answering. I need a few more. I've got 10 so far. All right. All right. Uh, any more? Last chance to respond. I've got 12 responses. All right. All right. Here's what you said. Out of 12, okay. So no's are the majority. Now, those of you who said yes, I can understand why you might have said yes because you're thinking, well, maybe he was trying to help the workers. Okay. Now, I'll talk about that in a minute. But the actual answer is no because he's breaking the standards. Okay. Even if he was trying to help the workers, still, you can't break other standards. All right. So the next question then is of these five core principles, what do you think? Which ones are violated? Which ones did he break? Okay, so even if you think he was helping others, maybe he violated some others. Like maybe he violated uh, free choice or fairness. Okay, so I want you to answer. What do you just pick one? Don't worry, it's not like I've got 10 so far. I want a few more of you. Okay, there's 17 online, so I'd like if you can a few more. Yeah, good. Any more? Last chance. Okay. All right, let me show you what 12 people said. 12 people. There are the answers. Okay. So the majority said justice or fairness. Okay. And I would agree that that's probably, a very important reason. And some of you picked the others. But you know what? Actually, all of you are right in a way because the actual answer is all of the above. Okay. Because you can apply all of them, really. You know, uh, he was trying to help the stakeholders, perhaps. Okay. Uh, he should avoid causing harm, right? Because some stakeholders would be harmed. It takes away free choice because once you bribe, you take away free choice, right? It destroys fair bidding process for sure. No fairness in bribing. And finally, he should act responsibly as company president. All right. So he really did violate the universal principles, the five core principles. All right. So the answer is based on deontology, the standards. Was he doing the right thing? The answer is no, because bribery is illegal and unethical in many countries based on international standards, right? And the five core principles, okay? Uh, and now some of you say, well, maybe he was trying to help the workers practicing beneficence. But even if he was, in deontology, we're not allowed to break other standards just because we want to help the workers, okay? And it violates fair practice, justice, and leads to corruption. So, based on deontology, the answer is no, because it violates the standards, especially the five core principles. All right. Now, virtue ethics takes a look at the character. All right. And let me ask you the question about virtue ethics. The president needs to demonstrate good character traits, right? Now, the question I want to ask you, based on character ethics, did he do the right thing? So don't don't apply deontology. So don't apply any standards. Don't look at the end result. That's utilitarianism. But based on what this action says about his character as a president, was he doing the right thing? So here, I want you to take a vote on that. Any more responses? I've got 13 so far. 13 out of 18. 14, that's good. Anyone else? Last chance. Okay, let me publish the results. I've got 14 responses here, and here's what I got. Okay, interesting. It's split between yes and no, 50-50. Now, those of you who said yes, I can understand why you said yes, because you say, well, yeah, he was trying to help the workers. So therefore, he must be a good man, right? Now, let's assume, for the sake of argument, that he was doing it because he was trying to help others. Okay, so that's a good motive, right? He wasn't just doing it for profit. Okay, but the question I'd have to ask is this: when people bribe, especially the leaders bribe, like the company president bribes, how does it look on his character? So think of it this way: there are two main airplane manufacturers. Boeing, Boeing makes a lot of airplanes. Airbus. So if you fly an airplane, chances are you're going to fly on a. If you fly in North America, chances are you're going to fly on a Boeing plane. In maybe Europe, maybe you might fly an Airbus plane. Now, if you hear about in the news, let's say the president of Boeing Corporation bribed a foreign official in order to get a contract, to get business, what would you think? Would you think, oh, President of Boeing, he offered a bribe in order to win business. Oh, he's a good man. He was trying to help his employees. Would you think that way? Probably not, huh? Probably not. You think, what? A company president, a Boeing, bribed a government official in order to win business? You'd look down on that person, right? So what I'm saying is, even if he was trying to help the workers, okay, I understand that, but actually, when we look at how it reflects on his character, it's negative. So the actual answer then is B, okay? Because people who bribe are seen as untrustworthy, dishonest, and underhanded. So even if he wasn't untrustworthy or dishonest, he is perceived as doing that. See, so because people who offer bribes usually are seen as lacking in integrity, it does not display good moral character. So for that reason alone, the president shouldn't offer the bribe. And the other thing is he had to keep it a secret because he knows if it becomes public, it's going to hurt his character. It's going to hurt his reputation as a company president, right? So it is, the answer is B, because based on virtue ethics, how it reflects on his character, it reflects bribery, reflects poorly on the man's character. Okay? So the last one is consequentialism, and I think we know the answer to that, right? We already know it looks favorable for stakeholders, right? And we think about all the stakeholders involved, right? Think about all these stakeholders. And if I were to ask you, which stakeholders are harmed? So we know that many benefit, but are any stakeholders harmed at all? What do you say? Are any of the stakeholders harmed? Because in consequentialism, we have to look at the harms versus the benefits. Okay, I've got 10 answering so far, so maybe a few more. 17 online, so 13, 14. Okay, last chance. A couple more maybe. All right. All right, let me show you what you said. Out of 14 responses, there you go. Interesting. So some of the competitors. So most of you said competitors. A couple of you said nobody's harmed. Okay, I would think that at least the competitors are harmed because you offer a bid, and the competitor is shut out of the bidding process because once you offer a bid, takes away. Everybody else is eliminated. Okay, so they're harmed. Now, a couple of you said the government of the home country. Now, well, I'm not sure what you mean by that. The government of the home country, because again, if he's successful with the business, the government of the home country would probably get tax revenue. So, but possibly there could be a way they are harmed. I'm not sure what you're thinking about. Employees, I think most of them benefit because they get to keep their jobs, right? So let's take. So the correct answer here is the competitors. Okay, the competitors. They're the ones that are harmed. All right. So the competitors are harmed because they're shut out of the bidding process. Everyone else gets benefit. Okay. Even the government official benefits, shareholders benefit because they get more revenue, they get the contract. So more are benefited than are harmed. And so, based on consequentialism, the end result: did the president do the right thing by offering the bribe? I think we know the right answer here. The answer should be, I think I'm just going to skip the poll here because I think we know the right answer is obvious. Okay. The right answer is yes. More stakeholders benefit than are harmed. Okay. So more stakeholders benefit than are harmed. Did the bribe produce favorable consequences for all the stakeholders? It appears yes, but here's the rub here: only if kept a secret. So it is true if we don't if it's kept a secret, yes, everybody benefits. Workers keep their jobs, the town is saved, the government official even is able to pay off his debts, he benefits, the foreign country even gets the planes they need. So it seems the good outweighs the harm. However, only if kept a secret, because if it becomes public, everybody gets hurt. Okay, and maybe that's what some of you were thinking about. So all stakeholders benefit except the competitors. All right. So sometimes when we look at consequentialism and deontology, so when we look at this case, based on deontology, the standards of right and wrong, based on virtue ethics, the president's character, the answer is clearly no, he did the wrong thing. And even based on consequentialism, the answer is yes, but only if kept a secret. Okay, and so that's a big qualifier there. Now, often we look at consequentialism versus deontology, and so we think, is it ever justified to break the rules, to lie or to break the law, for example, to achieve a good end result? Do you think it's ever justified? I'm going to ask you that question right now. Is it ever justified to break the rules, like to break the law or to break a universal standard like lying in order to achieve a good end result? So what do you say there? Never, or to help others in a significant way, like to save jobs, save life, C, or both B and C? Okay? Go ahead and answer. Okay, I've got 14 so far. Anyone else? 15, that's great. Anyone else? 3 more. If you can answer, that'd be great. 3 more. Okay. All right. So I'm going to publish the poll. I've got 15 responses out of 18 online. So here is what you said there. Okay. So many of you, the majority said both B and C. That's D. Okay. So just to help others in a significant way or to save lives. Okay. So I would actually agree with you. It could be D. Okay. Now let's start with C. To save life, certainly it is C for sure. Think about this: lying in order to save a life, for example. You break the moral standard of lying. So if you think, I think about in World War II, in Nazi Germany, the man, some of you might learn from history, there was a crazy man, dictator by the name of Hitler, a dictator of Germany, and he was responsible for exterminating millions upon millions of Jewish people. He committed what we call genocide. He wanted to exterminate a race of people. He decided that he wanted to exterminate the Jewish race. And so he would round up all the Jewish people in Europe and send them off into the gas chambers and literally mass kill them. It was horrible. It was horrible. And so there were some people who wanted to help and save the lives of Jewish people. So they would hide these Jewish people in their homes. And that's breaking the law. You weren't supposed to do that because in that regime, it was illegal to hide Jewish people. And also, when soldiers came to their door and said, "Are you hiding any Jewish people?" Of course, they lied and said no, right? And so some people were lying and breaking the law in order to save the life of Jewish people. Was it justified? Yes, in this case, I would say it was justified to save life. Okay. Now, what about B, to help others in a significant way? Is it ever justified? Now, in the case of the airplane case, I would say just to save jobs, it was not justified. Okay. Yes, he helped the workers in a significant way, but he could have helped them by winning the bid fair and square. Okay. He didn't have to bribe in order to save jobs. But maybe you could think of another way in which lying or breaking the law could help a person. Um, for example, suppose I have a sister and she's married to an abusive husband. And suppose my sister wants to run away from her husband because her husband is beating her up, okay, physically harming her. And so I help my sister to hide away somewhere in the city or somewhere out of town. I hide her away to keep her away from my to keep her away from the abusive husband. And suppose the husband comes to me and says, "Where's my sister? Are you hiding her? Where is my sister?" Of course, I'm going to lie because I need to protect my sister. Okay. So maybe sometimes in some situations, in extreme situations, it could be justified to lie or even break the law in order to help someone in a very significant way. Not in the president's case, but sometimes I think, if I was to protect my sister from an abusive man, I definitely would lie. Okay. So we can see that, yes, I would agree that it would be D, because definitely C and sometimes for B. Okay. All right. So finally, we look at the last three tests. We already looked at publicity tests. So we've got the three traditions, and then we look at three tests. Publicity test says, what if it becomes public? All right. You always have to remember, sometimes situations become public. There was a situation some years ago, president of a company called Radio Shack. Radio Shack is no longer in business. It was an electronics company. It's similar to Best Buy. And they found that this president, his name was David Edmondson, they discovered on his resume, now he became CEO of the company, okay? And they discovered that on his resume, some reporter discovered that 30 years ago when he applied for a job, he put on his resume that he got a bachelor's degree from a school in California when actually he didn't earn the degree, okay? So it's kind of like if you go to Seneca College and you go later find a job, but you don't graduate from Seneca, you don't get a diploma, but you apply for a job and you say, well, I'll put a diploma from Seneca College, even though I didn't get it, okay? So because it looks better on the resume, right? That's what the guy did. He put a bachelor's degree. But 30 years later, they discovered it. And people said, no, that's bad. You lied on your resume 30 years ago. We can't trust you. So he was forced out of the job. He had to step down in disgrace as CEO, even 30 years later, right? 30 years later, after the fact, it became public. So again, don't lie on your resume, because these days companies do check, okay? Because they know a lot of people lie on their resume, all right? So the question is, keep in mind, what if it becomes public? And if the president's action were to become public, it would look poorly on the president, okay? So it fails the publicity test, because public expectation is companies should win bids fair and square, not with underhanded tactics like bribery, okay? So fails the publicity test. Warren Buffett says the same thing. If a reasonably intelligent but unfriendly reporter were to write it up in tomorrow's paper for everyone to see, is it okay? Okay, so Warren Buffett says the same thing. Think about it. If it becomes public, would it be okay? If the answer is no, it's the wrong thing to do. What about the reversibility test? Put yourself in the other person's shoes, the person who would be harmed, okay? So I taught this test to my son some years ago. My son's name is Wesley, and years ago he was 14 years old, and I took him to a bicycle repair shop to fix his bicycle. So a man fixed the bicycle, and after he fixed his bicycle, the man told his son, the man had a son who was about the same age as my son, Wesley. And the man, he said, asked his son to collect the money, right? And so the son, because he was young, he didn't count very well, he gave me back too much change. he gave me something like $10 or so too much change. I immediately spotted and I gave it back to the boy. I said, "Oh, you gave me too much change. Here, take back the money." Okay. So Wesley and I, we walk out of the bicycle store. The minute we walk out of the store, my son Wesley says to me, "Dad, why did you say anything? You should have just kept the money." And I thought to myself, "Oh no, oh my goodness, I got a bad son. I've got an unethical son." And so I decided right then and there to teach him something about ethics. And I used the reversibility test. I said, "Wesley, that boy in there, he's about your age, 14 years old or so. If you were him, reversibility test, if you were him and you gave a customer too much change, would you want the customer to give the money back?" And Wesley thought, yeah, I guess so. I said, "Well, if that's what you want, that's the right thing to do. Give the money back," right? So I think he learned the lesson because today he's a pretty ethical guy. All his bosses at work trust him, okay, because he learned his lesson, right? Okay. So if you're a parent, teach your kids the reversibility test, all right? So if the president was to put himself in the position of the competitors, he would not agree with the bribe because competitors win bids believing they are participating in a fair process. Offering a bribe is cheating. Okay. The final test we call generalizability. And so this says, what if your action becomes a universal rules? Remember we talked about universal rules? So if it is if your action becomes a universal rule, would it be acceptable? Okay. So here's an example. Years ago, if you go to Tim Hortons, you play up the roll up the rim contest, you would actually have to roll up the rim on the cup. Today it's virtual. Okay. Now suppose you roll up the rim of a cup and you say, "Oh, I didn't win. I'm so upset. I'm going to just throw it on the sidewalk." You got to ask yourself this question in the generalizability test. What if it's a universal principle that everybody can throw their cups and garbage on the sidewalk? Is that acceptable? Well, if that was a universal principle, I don't think so. It wouldn't be a good thing. So that's what the generalizability test says. What if everyone did this? What if it became a general universal principle? So in the generalizability test, we look at the president has to ask himself, would it be acceptable if all company presidents offered bribes to win business? Would that be acceptable? I don't think so. Because suddenly it would destroy fair bidding process. Bids would not be based on merit. Customers would ultimately receive inferior products because companies would have no incentive to build top quality products in order to win a bid. If I knew that presidents were offering bids in order to win contracts, I'd be afraid to fly an airplane because I would be thinking, this plane is unsafe. I mean, how do I know it was built to top quality? Because the company that built it, they didn't have to follow any standards because they just have to win the bid by bribery, right? So we would all be getting inferior products. Airplanes, cars, be terrible world if bribery was the norm. Okay, so that's what we call the generalizability test. Okay, so basically in the case, we say the answer is no, really, because it fails all three tests. It fails 2 out of the 3 traditions. And even in the 3 traditions, even in consequentialism, if we assume that eventually the bribe becomes public, consequences would be bad. Okay? So let's take a look at this case here, the BG conference case. Okay? So if this was a live in-person class, I would have you break up into groups to discuss it. But it's not, so we'll just have to answer some questions online. All right? So it's a short case. Here it is. Let me read it to you. There's a conference center in Vancouver, the BG Conference Center in Vancouver, Canada. All right? Now you are Mark. Okay, I want you to assume that you're Mark. So Mark is the manager of the BG Conference Center in Vancouver, Canada. Tomorrow will be a major on-site visit from Douglas General Mack from a small country called Goshen. Okay. Now, General Mack is the head of the Goshen Light Conference, expected to draw 50,000 attendees from around the world. So that's a big conference. The GLC annual convention is a very large event by Vancouver standards. And because the economy has been so slow, BG badly needs the convention. So you really need the business here. The GLC has narrowed its consideration to two cities. So Vancouver, you're Vancouver, and you're competing. Your competitor is the Los Angeles. So you want the conference, and you're competing against Los Angeles, and you're dealing with a guy by the name of Douglas Mack. Okay, now Douglas Mack is not a very nice man. Let me show you why. See, from previous meetings, you met with him before. You're Mark. You know that Douglas Mack is a very egotistic and opinionated individual. So he's kind of a jerk, okay? Yet Mack is the person who's going to determine who gets the convention, okay? Now, his opinions come from the country, a culture called Goshen, okay? Small country, has backward sexist views of women. Sexist views of women means you basically think women are stupid. It's kind of like the old-fashioned view we had in North America 50 years ago. Okay. Now, Mark personally deplores this view. You disagree with it, with Mack's views and the Goshen culture. So you don't like it. Okay. Now, you have some important decisions to make about the meeting with Douglas Mack before. If you were Mark, what would you do for each of the following? So you're Mark, okay, and you're dealing with Mack, who's a sexist, okay? He's a sexist. He looks down upon women, all right? So here's the problem, all right? You have to bring along a salesperson, okay? So it's not just you got to bring along one salesperson to the meeting. Should you bring along your top salesperson, who happens to be an attractive woman, Cindy Jones? She's your top salesperson. And should you bring her to the meeting, or the mid-range performer, amicable, easygoing Bill Smith? Okay, so Cindy is much sharper with figures. So she's smart, much smarter than Bill, with numbers and analysis. But the problem is Cindy might put Mac off. Now she might offend him because he's very uncomfortable with smart or bright women, because sexist men, they think women are stupid, and when they confronted with a smart woman, they get uncomfortable. Okay, that's what happens. Okay, and moreover, Cindy could respond negatively to Mac's sexist views and jokes. Well, Bill, he'll just laugh him off, right? So remember, we really need this business. Okay, you really need the business. The economy is slow, and Mac's a sexist, and you think, well, I got to bring one salesperson. Maybe I should bring Bill, because he's not going to offend Mac, and but Cindy, she might, even though she's the top salesperson. Okay, so what would you choose? I'll give you some choices here. Should you, as manager Mark, take Cindy or Bill to meet General Mac? So A, yes, she's your top salesperson. Or B, Bill, because he won't offend Mac, and you really need this business. Or another reason, Bill, you don't want Cindy to be subjected to Mac's sexist comments and jokes. So what do you say there? Okay, go ahead and answer. Just pick one. Pick one. I've got 9 so far. I'd like you all to answer if possible. What do you think? Just pick one. Well, okay, a couple more. Go ahead. Just answer. Pick one. Pick one. Cindy or Bill? Pick one. 13. I'd like a couple more. Maybe a couple more, huh? Couple more. Okay, I've got 4 people who haven't responded yet. All right. Last chance. Okay. All right. Let me show you what you said. Out of 13 responses, here's what you said. There you go. So, vast majority, Bill wins. Bill wins. Okay. Some of you said, well, you don't want Cindy to be subjected to Mac's um, sexist comments and jokes, and so I understand that. That's good reason. Okay. And Bill, because you want the business, right? Okay. And only 4 of you chose Cindy. Okay, that's interesting. Now, I've done this case many times over many ethics classes, and in actual fact, in all 3 of the ethics classes, including this one, the winner is Bill. Okay, so the winner is Bill. So more often than not, Bill is the winner in this case. Okay, so the majority agrees. However, I would say the correct answer is Cindy. Okay, why? Well, okay, now if we base this on consequentialism, all right, uh, it is true. Bill is the obvious choice. It is true. Because if I'm looking at the just the result, we say yes. We don't want Mac to feel uncomfortable, so Bill is the safe choice. We take a man because if we take Cindy, we risk Mac being uncomfortable around smart women, and Cindy might offend Mac by responding negatively to his sexist views and jokes. So based on consequentialism, yeah, I understand we probably should take Bill. However, why do I say Cindy's the right choice? Well, deontology says we should apply rules, laws, and core principles, right? Now, assume we have no corporate rules. Okay, so let's say we don't have a corporate rule that applies here. And also, whether you take Cindy or Bill, you're not breaking any Canadian law. So you're not really breaking law here, whether you take Cindy or Bill. Now, we look at the 5 core principles. Okay, now we have to ask ourselves, do they apply? You say, well, maybe they apply only in North America, okay? Now, Mac is from a different culture. And we have to ask ourselves, maybe we should just accommodate to that culture, right? So, what would you say? Some of you might say, well, yes, the phrase, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So, now we're not in Rome because we're not in Goshen, but Mac is from Goshen. So, shouldn't we just accommodate? Because some people say, well, values and ethics, they are different in different cultures, right? So maybe we just need to accommodate to that culture, right? Or maybe you say, no, the 5 core principles are universal values, they should apply everywhere because this is breaking the 5 core principles. So what would you say here? Okay, let's pick. Go ahead and pick one. Don't worry about being right or wrong. Don't worry. I don't hold it against you if you choose the wrong answer. So don't worry about being right or wrong. Just choose one. Okay, I've got 14. Anyone else? Last chance to respond. 14 out of 19. Anyone else? Last chance. Okay. So let me just show you what you said here. Out of 14 responses, there you go. So a little bit more on B, and some of you, and quite a few said A as well. Now, I will say the actual answer is B because we're applying, as I said at the beginning, I said these core principles are universal. They apply everywhere around the world. However, when we look at A, you can choose A for small things. Small things. All right. So, like when in Rome, do as the Romans do, we can adapt to cultural values in small areas. I give you an example. Walmart is worldwide and they don't fail very often. But one of the places they failed was in Germany. Why? Because there was a clash of cultural values. For example, in Germany, when workers take a break, they don't take coffee breaks, they take beer breaks. Okay, they drink beer. And it's perfectly acceptable in Germany. And so in Walmart, however, Walmart said, oh, no, 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 no. We are from the southern United States. And according in southern United States, most people don't drink at all. And say, definitely not while you're working. Okay. I think in Germany, you could maybe have one or two drinks, as long as you don't get drunk. But Walmart said, no drinks whatsoever, only coffee breaks, no beer breaks. Okay. And so, workers didn't like that, right? So ultimately, because Walmart wasn't able to compromise, and I think, if I was a Walmart president, I would think, I consider that a small issue. I'd say, as long as you don't get drunk, as long as you just take one or two at most beers, might be acceptable to have a beer break, right? If that's part of the culture. So in small areas, yes, it's acceptable. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. But in this case, when we're dealing with an issue, let's say with fairness, uh, it's a bigger issue. I don't think we can accommodate. So that's why we would say for small issues, yes, A is okay. But in most cases, for the bigger issues, like the five core principles are big issues, I say no. Okay, we don't compromise. So B is the right answer. And if we were to look at the five core principles here, uh, which one do you think we should apply in order to take Cindy? We could apply them all, but if you had to choose one to take Cindy, which one would you take? Which one would you apply? Okay, go ahead and choose one. You just think. So we want to choose Cindy, and based on what principle should we choose Cindy? Based on what principle should we choose Cindy? Go ahead and take a guess. It's okay if it's the wrong answer. Go on. Okay. I've got 11 responses. Okay. Any more? Take a guess. Don't be afraid to take the wrong answer. I've got 12 responses. How about a couple more? A couple more. Okay, I've got 12 responses. So let me publish what we got with 12 people who responded. And here's what you said. Okay. So, yeah, as I said, you all could be right. All right. You can apply them all. But if you had to choose one, I agree with the majority here. Be fair. Okay. Why be fair? Well, think about this. Be fair. D. Based on fairness, we choose Cindy. Because fairness demands that the salesperson who is most deserving of this job is the one who performs the best. And it's based on merit. So top salespeople like Cindy should deserve the top job. And this is a top job. So she's the one we should choose. Bill, he's only mid-range. And the only reason we're considering Bill is because, well, he's a man, right? I mean, if Cindy was a man, we wouldn't even think about it. We would take Cindy. And so, based on the fairness, and based on fairness is based on merit. Based on merit, Cindy's the one we got to take. All right. Now, let's go on and say, well, C could also be an answer because we allow people to choose freely. So what we do is we pick Cindy based on fairness, but we also want to give her choice. Okay, we talk. So what we do is we talk to her first. Okay, we allow her to choose. So you talk to Cindy. You say, hey, listen, Cindy, I'm choosing you to go on this job because you're my top salesperson, and there's a top job, and you deserve to go. So I'm choosing you to go with me. However, I got to warn you, this guy's a sexist. He looks down on women. He thinks women are stupid. All right. And also, he's uncomfortable with smart women. Okay, he's going to joke about women. He's going to offend you. Are you confident? Can you handle him? Are you confident that you can still win the business, or should I choose somebody else? And Cindy might say, "Hey, listen, I won't be able to control myself. I'm gonna get angry at that guy. I might even punch him in the face. So maybe you should just take a man." And then in that case, you take a man. But you did choose Cindy, and Cindy gives you permission, right? So, but if she says, "Listen, I can handle him. Don't worry, I can handle him," then we need to trust her judgment and competence. So we respect her right. Again, this is fair treatment and dignity. Okay. So fairness is the main reason, and choice is another reason. Okay, that we choose Cindy. Okay. Now, what about virtue ethics? So based on deontology, on the standards, based on fairness, we choose Cindy. But what about virtue ethics? So how does this reflect upon your character? Okay, so what would you choose? Based, what do you say? Okay, keep answering. I've got need a few more responses. It's okay. Just choose one. Yeah, I've got 12. A few more, maybe a few more. Anyone else? Only 12 people answered. Anyone else? All right. I'd like more of you to answer if possible. All right, I'll publish the result. All right. So based on virtue ethics, the majority said Cindy. Actually, you were right. Okay, those the majority here. Now I know some of you might say, "Well, we choose Bill because we want to protect Cindy," but remember, you want to talk to her first, right? See, so really, you think about this. We choose Cindy. Choosing her will develop and display good character traits for you as a manager. Because when you choose Cindy and explaining the situation to her, it shows that you're being fair and trustworthy, right? You show I'm not discriminating against women. You choose Cindy. And when we talk to Cindy, so we talk to her in advance. So we talk to her. We show that we care about her well-being. We don't want her to feel uncomfortable in this situation. We warn her ahead of time. Mac is going to joke about women, okay? And can you handle that, right? So we tell her in advance. And remember, if you take Bill, Cindy's going to be upset, and she will find out. And when she finds out, her opinion of you as a manager is going to go down, and she may start looking for another job. So, based on virtue ethics, how this reflects on your character as a manager, we certainly should take Cindy, but we talk to her first, right? We talk to her first. All right. Now, if we take Cindy and Mark decides to bring Cindy, should we tell her to cool it? Calm down, Cindy. When Mac starts mouthing off about women, making jokes about women, and should we say, "Hey, cool it, Cindy. Take it easy. Don't worry." Yes, because we don't want Cindy to offend Mac. Or no, we'll just let her deal with it on her own. So what do you say there? Any other responses? I've only got 9 so far. Come on, just choose one. Choose one. Sometimes it's the system, or sometimes I know it's a computer makes it slow. Okay, anyone else? Anyone else? All right. Okay, I've got 11 responses, but I'll publish it. 12 responses. Okay, great. So 12 people. Most of you said, 9 of you said, we let her deal with that on her own. I agree, because we've already talked to her, right? No need to say cool it. You've already explained the situation to her. We want to trust her to know how to deal with Mac. She's your top salesperson. She knows how to deal with everybody, right? All kinds of clients. And she will not take the comments, as an attack on her, okay? And she'll realize they are the result of her culture and background. Okay, so now the other thing, I've got one more question to ask you, okay? And I want your opinion on this last question. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, Cindy is an attractive woman. Okay, she happens to be an attractive woman, and it is true. In our society, your attractiveness makes a difference in terms of business. We can see that in the media, right? Attractive people are more popular, and attractive people in business often get more business. Have any of you seen that program Shark Tank? Where there's a panel of men and women, and entrepreneurs will make a pitch because they're trying to ask some of the panel to invest in their business, right? Anyone ever see that show Shark Tank? Anyone? Yes, no, yes. Okay, so some of you. Okay, so a couple maybe have seen it. Okay, so what it is a show where you've got entrepreneurs. They come before a panel of men and women, and they try to convince the panel to invest in their company. Okay, now one of the panel members, one of the sharks, there's two women there. One of the women, she was criticized for saying this, but she's a successful businesswoman. She's a multi-millionaire, and because she's investing in companies. And she said, when I was younger, she said, I would intentionally wear a short skirt to a business meeting because it would get me more attention and I could get more business that way. So, in other words, she was using her attractiveness, she was using her sex appeal intentionally to get more business. Okay. So, it is true, some women will do that to use their attractiveness, to use their sex appeal in order to win business. And this shark, she did it. Okay. And she freely admitted it. And of course, a lot of people criticize her for saying that, but that's what she said. So I want to ask you this question here. Should Mark tell Cindy to wear a sexy outfit rather than her normal business attire because that will help influence Mac? See, sexist men, they don't like smart women, but they like sexy women, okay? So maybe Mark should say, hey, Cindy, put on a sexy dress because that's going to really influence Mac and will definitely win the business if you dress sexy, right? Okay, so what do you say to that, all right? A, of course. Anything to win business or absolutely not? What do you say? Okay, you want some more responses? Come on, choose one. No one has chosen A yet, so it's okay to choose A if you want to. Just choose one. Okay. Only 11 responses. Anyone else? Come on. What do you think? What do you think? If you choose A, it's okay. All right. I'll publish the results here. All right. Here's what you said. Okay. Out of 11 responses, some didn't want to answer, perhaps. All of you said absolutely not. Okay. Now, in my last class, a couple people said yes. Okay. Anything to win the business. And, when I use the example of Shark Tank, The woman who said she would wear a short skirt in order to win business, that was her own personal choice. Okay, so she did it. She made the decision herself to dress in a sexy way in order to win business. However, as a manager, as Cindy's boss, you're not allowed to do that. Okay, so the answer is absolutely not, because this would violate her right to be treated with dignity and respect. So we treat our employees with dignity and respect, not as objects in order to win business. Employees must be treated as human beings with rights. Okay, so again, it is absolutely no. If some women choose to use their attractiveness in order to win business, well, that's fine because it's their own choice. But as the boss, the employer, we're not allowed to violate their right to respect and dignity because that's a universal standard. Okay, makes sense? All right. So let's just let me take attendance one last time, and then you'll be free to go. I'll stick around if any of you have any questions about anything. Remember to do the quiz one. It's due on Tuesday, and make sure you do it before 11:59. So go ahead and do it. And then let's see. Okay, take attendance. All right, took attendance. All right, and also, if you don't belong to a group, join a group, especially if there's a date that you want, even if you don't know anybody. And after a few days, if no one joins the group, I'm going to start putting people in groups randomly. Okay, I'm going to do that. So, which is okay as well. All right, so that's it. I've just taken attendance, and you're free to go. I will